Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Dynasty Pros Devy Show. I'm Tommy Harvey. With me is JT, Noah, and SC. Um, Tonight we're going to discuss Devy relevant guys from the Big 12 and kind of Group of Five independent also. And we're also gonna jump into to some C2C relevant guys with this group with this group also. All that will be coming up right now. Hey guys, how's everything going for you tonight?
Good, my man.
Good to see you.
Beautiful Monday.
Yeah, Monday all day long today, wasn't it? All right, well, let's go ahead and dive head first into this tonight. We're like I said, we're going to be talking about the Big 12 and Group of Five independent um, Devy relevant players, plus some C2C action. First off, we're going to be discussing the quarterbacks. Let me pop this list up here so everybody can see who it is we'll be talking about tonight. We've actually added a couple guys past this also because we've decided we're going to jump into some C2C tonight. But first off, let's go ahead and talk about who's Devy relevant here. Obviously, at the top of the list, we're going to have Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma, and then there's going to be some couple of sleepers down here in the middle sections. What stands out to you guys here?
Quinn Ewers is too high.
Okay.
I was just gonna say he's gonna be I feel like he's the most controversial guy right now for people. It's just, everybody talked about him coming out of high school. He's looked good at sometimes. He's looked really good. Other times he's looked bad. He's the one guy when I look at most people's rankings is all over the place. People either think he's way too high, way too low. It's a big year for him. I think it's a big year and whether he's going to actually prove it and get to the hype. Because he's got all the weapons this year. He's got no reason not to be good. And if he isn't good for some reason, those who have already vested highly in Quinn Ewers, I think are going to be pretty upset because he's one of those guys we've talked about, one of those guys that come out as a freshman and everybody wants, and then they don't hit right away. Man, that value, it can drop pretty quickly. You usually get that second year, everybody kind of gives you a little leeway to bounce back. But if you don't bounce back, I feel like that's when you just take a massive, massive hit in value.
Well, I'll give you my thoughts on Quinn Ewers here in a minute, but first I want to ask Noah, out of these guys who are on this list, who would you put above Quinn Ewers?
I have him below Arnold and Arch, personally. I'll take the shot on the 5-star freshman. Over Ewers. I think what JT said is spot on. This is a big prove-it year for him. And I just don't have the confidence that he's going to deliver the outcome that folks want. I think when you're talking about Devy value, Arch and Jackson Arnold are not going to play this year. We talked about this on the Pac-12 episode about really highly ranked QBs keeping their Devy value for years. And so if I'm going to go invest high on a QB, I want to invest on one of those freshmen that's really highly rated that I know is going to retain that value. Ewers is not a lock to me as the QB3, even QB4 or 5 in this draft class. There are a number of guys, JJ McCarthy, Riley Leonard, Bo Nix, who I could see easily overtaking him for that 3-point. Jordan Travis, there are guys I'm not saying that are definitely going to overtake him. I just think Ewers, I would much rather have a freshman, highly ranked freshman QB that is elite then take that risk with an early pick, especially. If Ewers is sitting there in my Devy draft in the mid to late third round, do I take a swing? I might take a swing there, but he's not gonna be. I've never seen him go that low. I've seen him go as high as like you're saying, the variance is high, but I've seen him go as high as the first. I've never seen him make it out of the second.
Yeah. He's more of a kind of that first, second round range, second round.
Yeah. But, we've talked about many times where the QB3 for the 2024 class isn't a lock for really anybody. And Ewers, unlike the other guys you did mention in Bo Nix, McCarthy, even Travis or Leonard, they don't have anyone behind them that if Ewers messes up, he's done, right? Because they're easily going to just say, all right, Arch, it's your turn. So this may be the fire that we need from Ewers to say, okay, you're going to take it to the next level and lock in that spot, because he does have some weapons around him. He did lose Bijan Robinson, but they got Adonai Mitchell, but they got Jonte Cook. They also brought in Cedric Baxter and have, Jachavian Sanders as well as Xavier Wardy coming back. So he does have the talent there. Sure. And this can definitely be the year where, like we're all saying, though, we want to see it from him to say you're the man. And the fire is lit behind him, because the second he messes up, throws 2 games, pick 6 a game or something, hey, it's Arch's turn, man. And we're not afraid to just sit you and, go on.
Or Malik Murphy.
Yeah. I was about to say, I'm not even sure Arch is the backup in Texas right now. Mm-hmm. I think it's Malik Murphy.
I think you're right. I just think Arch is going to hold value because people don't expect him to play. So like Noah said, I think Arch holds value no matter what. And if you can get him later, that's where I'm going to. But that's where I'm at. I don't know if I want to go spend a first on Ewers or Arch, honestly. No. If I can go somewhere else and one of those guys fall to me, I'll take it. But the names are too big right now. People are taking them too high. And when you're taking them, you're like, these guys got to hit for me, or I'm in most different leagues. If you're not hitting on those guys, you're in trouble because you're taking them with one of your top picks.
Yeah.
So for Ewers to be a first round pick next year, though, in NFL, your pro rookie drafts, what does he need? Does it need to be a second round or just a first, and that's it for you to say, okay, I could take him at like 112? Well, what would be the best he has to do, or the floor for him to succeed to get to that first round value?
Well, I think right now you're looking at him being a first round NFL draft pick. Mm-hmm. So with you, my opinion on Ewers is that prior to his injury last year in that Alabama game, he looked great. He was killing Alabama. Like he was carving them up. If you get that Quinn Ewers, then he's closer to QB2 than he is QB4. Mm-hmm. He may, if he's that Quinn Ewers, he's better than Drake May. Mm-hmm. And his recruiting profile shows that also. So I don't have any real hesitation in taking Quinn Ewers, because I saw him play prior to that injury, and he was really, really good, making just tremendous throws. His placement was great. Then he broke his collarbone. Took him a few weeks to come back from that, and then when he came back, he was pretty inconsistent. Showed in the spring though that he was back to full strength and able to make all the throws, and he has a great arm strength. Outside of Joe Milton, I don't think there's a stronger arm in the country.
Maybe Malik Murphy. Just kidding.
Maybe.
No, just kidding. But you're right. He does have an arm.
Yeah. Murphy's arm is more kind of straight down the field. Whereas Quinn can make every single NFL throw. So my opinion, I don't really hesitate to take him into the beginning of the second round. If he's there at the beginning of the second round, I'm definitely taking him. He's, as of right now, he may even be QB2 on a lot of NFL draft boards.
For me,
just because of your talent.
Yeah, I'm going to say for me, because after Caleb Williams, say Drake May, if you say he's 2, that QB3 is really up in the air. So that's where I'm thinking if you're taking Ewers, you're going, okay, that 3 is really up in the air. If he plays well, he's going to be that 3. And like you said, maybe May has a down year and he jumps May. That's where I think the value is, especially if you're in a league where you're like, hey, I don't want to hold on to a freshman QB for 3 years or 4 years. I want a guy that's going to be able to be on my NFL roster in a year or two. Then I'm more likely to jump on Ewers there because I'm going. He feels like a lot of guys in this list. It's like you go with Ewers, you go Nix, you go Penix, you go Sanders. I feel like all those guys are right together.
Right.
And so now the problem is Ewers costs a lot more than the rest of those guys. Right. So I think that's the issue for most people. But I guess if you're going to pay the high cost, he's the guy that has the pedigree that everybody's been on, and you could probably move him for more because of that. So maybe it is worth it to take him just on the name value alone. But again, I think it could be huge up or down for him. I mean, he could be QB 7, 8, or he could be QB 2, I think. But again, when you're playing Devy, you're always taking chances.
Yeah.
So I think he's worth the chance. I wouldn't want to take him in the top 5. That's me. But again, like you said, if he gets to me at the end of the first, beginning of the second, depending who's there, and if I'm a more of a win now team where I want guys that are going to start for me in a year or two, then I'm probably taking him. But if I'm a team that I'm building, I don't mind taking young guys. I'm probably taking an Arch instead, just because I think Arch might hold value for another year or two where I could move him if I needed to.
See, to me, Arch is more of a name than he is talent. I don't think he has.
He is. I think I agree.
Yeah,
100%.
He's not Eli or Peyton.
I think Arch too has. I was just having this conversation actually. Like I like Jackson Arnold's talent over Arch's talent personally.
Yeah,
I love Jackson Arnold, man.
I think Jackson Arnold is great. I've got Jackson Arnold and Nico above Arch when I'm personally ranking out this class. And I have Nico in that order, Nico and then Jackson and then Arch. And I agree with you. I think the other interesting thing with Arch is in terms of likelihood to bust, like because of Arch's name, he is going to retain value. Also, his expectations are so much higher. Like you said, Tom, like the expectation, what success looks like for him is Peyton Eli is like the Manning name. And so I just think the likelihood that he busts is high because meeting those expectations is so challenging.
Well, by drafting Arch right now, you're looking to move him before he steps on the field. Because once he steps on the field, his value depreciates.
Agreed. 100%.
Because he's not going to be Peyton. He's not going to be Eli. I don't think he has that type of mental talent to him. Now he has all the physical talent. I don't necessarily think he has that same mental fortitude that his uncles have.
But people also have to realize, I'm just looking up Peyton Manning's Tennessee, his freshman year on it, he had just 1,100 yards, just over 1,100 yards and only 11 touchdowns. Freshman year, right? So he
wasn't a starting quarterback. He didn't start until halfway through his freshman year. Todd Helton started over.
Right, so he's something similar. Is that something where it's like, okay, or does he need to excel that expectation of what his uncle did a while back?
Well, the thing with Peyton was also a 5-star quarterback. Mm-hmm. Ole Miss fans were severely pissed off at the Manning family that Peyton did not go to Ole Miss. He went to Tennessee, and he sat for the first half of his freshman year. Matter of fact, he wasn't even the backup going into his freshman year. Jerry Copeland was the starting quarterback. He got hurt, and then Todd Helton was the starting quarterback after that. He ended up, I think, breaking his hand, and then Peyton and Brandon Stewart were kind of the battling freshmen because they were two highly touted freshman quarterbacks that year, and they were battling against each other. Peyton won the job, and Brandon Stewart transferred to Texas A&M. So whenever you were saying that, Peyton only had 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns his freshman year, back in 1994, those weren't bad numbers, especially whenever you only played half the year.
Sure.
Do any of these guys kind of stand out to you as far as being kind of sleepers? Like I personally like guys like Preston Stone and Michael Pratt, and I've been taking JJ Cole a lot in C2C supplementals late.
Yeah, I think the rest of this group is the complete opposite of Ewers and Manning. They're like all guys who've got a lot of talent. They play for smaller schools or in new situations, and you love them in C2C and CFF. But you're like, if I can get anything out of them on the pro level, I think you're going to be pumped about it because you're not expecting a lot of these guys. Now, do I think some of these guys can give you something? I definitely think they can. I think we talked briefly about Sam Hartman. I think this is Sam Hartman's chance to say, I'm a better quarterback than just the Wake Forest system. If he can somehow come out and just ball out for Notre Dame, I think that will change people's outlook on him. Now,
Yep.
He's an older guy. He's been in the league, college a long time. But if he has a massive year at Notre Dame, I think people look around and go, harder schedule, playing for Notre Dame, a lot more pressure. I think people on the NFL side will look at him differently. I think Preston Stone has a chance to impress. Now, the biggest problem, SMU, everybody's always like, they put up good numbers. Is it good enough for the pro level? But he's a guy I'm kind of high on him as well. Like you said, Pratt for Tulane, a little bit tougher conference this year with people moving in. They lost a lot of players. Excuse me. I think if Pratt has a big year, I think there's going to be a little bit more spotlight on Tulane than in the past. I think he's a guy that's got a shot to kind of jump up a little bit. And then Austin Reed, another guy we kind of talked about. Western Kentucky just has that firepower offense that just, puts it out. After Bailey Zappi did what he did, and he's kind of, mixed reviews so far in the NFL, but he's a young guy. I think, he's kind of opened the door for Austin Reed that people aren't thinking it's just a gimmick. They're looking at him as a guy that's got a shot. So
Reed's more talented. Reed's more talented than Bailey.
I agree with you. So I think these some of these guys are going to get a little bit more spotlight this year than they have in the past. And I think some of these guys are going to get a chance to kind of prove themselves. I mean, I hate the word game manager, but a guy that I feel like is a total game manager as far as just a guy who plays well, doesn't turn the ball over, and does what he's supposed to do is Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
He's a guy I've been on. If you look at his stats, I think he's got I wish I would have looked it up beforehand. He's got less than 10 career interceptions. Is it 8? Yeah, it's SC. Thank you for helping me out there. I mean, this guy does not throw picks. He's throwing 25, 30 touchdowns a season with 1, 2, 3 picks. He's a guy that I just feel could make an NFL roster. He feels like a guy that could be a backup, and if he got a chance, could be somewhat successful. He's a guy I like. And then I'll throw out kind of my last two, and then I'll let everybody else jump in because I'm hogging the mic here. Frank Harris. I love Frank Harris at UTSA and C2C and CFF. He's my guy. He was my MVP in my C2C league last year. He won. I had CJ Stroud, and he outscored CJ Stroud all season. Smoked him. So he's a guy I love. I call him, I hate when they say this, but it's like, I don't know how else to say it, but he's a poor man's Michael Vick to me. He's about the same size, left-handed. He doesn't have that just pure athletic ability of a Michael Vick with just the cannon arm, but he's a guy who just knows how to play. He can run, he can pass. He just does things a little bit differently. He's a guy I like a lot. And then just the man you never thought you'd hear back from again. I have to bring him up because I got my Florida Atlantic stuff on today. Is Casey Thompson, old Texas quarterback, getting back with Herman, is an old Texas head coach in Florida at Florida Atlantic. I want to see what he can do this year. I feel like he might have a decent breakout year there at Florida Atlantic for the Owls. So those are my guys I kind of keeping an eye on. I'll let you guys kind of jump in and give your thoughts on them.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Frank Harris. Matter of fact, I'm very much looking forward to the to when San Antonio comes to Knoxville to play Tennessee. That's going to be a tremendous game this year.
That's going to be fun.
That's going to be a great game. I mentioned JJ Cole earlier. Kind of looks like it's going to be JJ Cole season. Hunter Deckers probably is done there at Iowa State with this whole gambling scandal investigation, whatever you want to call it. So they're probably going to be turning the reins over to JJ Cole, and he's a monster, 6'7", 250. I mean that guy's huge. As a freshman, that's just ridiculous. I hope he doesn't gain too much weight to where he's not mobile enough to be effective. But 6'7", 250 is that's a big boy right there.
Yeah, that is a big boy. I just took JJ Cole at, you're going to love this one. I just took him at 40 something. I don't know. Somewhere real low. I can't even find it. Nope, 36 round of a C2C draft. And it was right after the Hunter Decker news dropped. And he was sitting there. Yeah,
he would have gone a lot higher. He would have gone a lot higher before that.
He would have gone so much higher. Yeah. So I felt lucky to get him there. He's got an interesting profile. I agree with you about the mobility. That's going to be the key. He has an arm. He's got a big arm. So it'll be interesting to see if he can have the pocket presence. The reports from camp, though, like Campbell takes every opportunity to bump that guy up, though. Like any time that you get him talking about JJ Cole, he is raving about him. And how he thinks this class is going to be a program changer for him. So he's big on him. I will piggyback on JT. Michael Pratt is a guy I think is super interesting. He ripped my Trojans apart last year in the Cotton Bowl, like just shredded us. Tyji Spears did too, but Pratt is 6'3", 225. He's mobile. He had 10 rushing touchdowns last year. His interception to TD ratio is incredibly low. His completion percentage has been rising every single year. And I think this is an interesting prove it year for him. And he's in that conversation of some of these QBs that we've talked about, where I agree with you. If he has one of those big years, you could talk him up a little bit. Another guy that's interesting, I wouldn't quite put him in the Devy conversation yet. I'd keep him C2C right now, is Braylon Braxton at Tulsa. Volume Pigs over at C2C and I were chatting about him because he just put out an article about him, and I had just drafted him, and he called him the G5 Justin Fields, which was really fun. And I think like Kevin Wilson being in charge there at Tulsa has a track record of developing QBs. He's put guys into the NFL before. He's a really interesting name to watch, especially for C2C with that dual threat ability at Tulsa. Like he could put up monster numbers that, he could, like you could have JT, you mentioned it, like on a C2C team, you could have him and Ewers, and he could outscore Ewers because of the dual threat ability if he puts up a ton of rushing yards, ton of rushing TDs, and has competent throwing numbers. He's an interesting guy to watch.
Yeah. As far as these C2C guys go, we got Jalen Daniels over at Kansas.
He's interesting.
Yeah. Jalen. Yeah.
He's interesting. Like he was so good last year before he went down.
Yeah. Well, he was great when he came back too.
And great when he came back. Like,
and then, you got guys like Taylon Green over at Boise State, Davis Brin, Darren Granger. All those guys are definitely viable for C2C and CFF purposes.
I definitely want to talk about JT and Grayson McCall too. I mean, I love that guy, and it really that smaller school vibe where, you're not taking him to say he's going to be a day 1 or day 2 pick. He may not even go day 3, maybe one of those undrafted QBs, but I think he's someone you want to keep an eye on because he does have a nice arm. He never throws less than 2,400 yards. He doesn't make the simple mistakes, so it is something that teams will like. And like you mentioned, Tommy, you know, he's someone that he could go in and be a backup. Given an opportunity, you may get a couple games out of him. And really, with the guy you're getting that late, that's really all you want for that bye-week filler type of guy, you know, just to go in there and when he's starting, he produces. So that's something I'm really keeping an eye on, you know, a late pick. I wouldn't get him in like a Devy draft, but you know, he would be someone I'm picking up in my rookie drafts, you know, as the 4th, 5th round, whatever it may be. And then C2C, I mean, I think he's great to get, you know, probably if you're looking for a college bound because you have a good college prize or something, like, you know, 5th or 6th round, because he does have some quarterback talent. And when it comes to those smart schools, you're looking at the competition, right? So you know he's going to continue to produce, and he's going to be the reason why they put up points.
Yeah, so, I mean, like I said, I had CJ Stroud on my team last year, and until McCall got hurt near the end of the year, McCall and Frank Harris were my 2 starting quarterbacks. CJ Stroud was actually, I'm in a league that is start 2 QB with a super flex that can be a QB. I was starting McCall and Harris every week, and then CJ Stroud was actually my super flex start. And obviously CJ Harris, you know, CJ Stroud is amazing and great year. Was one of my top quarterbacks last year. But that's how much these guys can score and put up in that kind of format. And I also saw somebody today, a couple people talking about, there was some reports that a lot of people were on Michael Pratt. Like he was getting a ton of people trying to get him to transfer, like big time schools were on Pratt. And he said, I just feel comfortable here. I feel like we got something going. I'm going to stay, which I love out of him. But man, I think now that's that fire just you burns. You're like, hey, I can make it happen here. I can still get drafted being at Tulane. And just like the way they ended that last season against USC, like you said, no, hate to see your team go down like that. That's tough. I know how it is. But, I mean, he just looked great. And I just think that conference this year, I think you're going to see Tulane and UTSA are going to be 2 exciting teams in that conference. They're my 2 teams to be at the top at the end of the year. And I just think, you know, more and more those guys on that lower level are going to get real looks, like real looks after it's all said and done, especially next year with how up in the air 3 through 10 is for quarterbacks. You get one team that loves you, man, you all of a sudden you go from a 5th round, 6th round pick to a 3rd rounder if a team absolutely just loves you. And we've seen 2nd and 3rd round quarterbacks. It's not a lot, but man, those guys can hit. You just got to make the roster and then get in a good situation.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Well, all right. Well, let's move on to our next position group. We're going to talk about the running backs. Let me throw this list up here so everybody can see it. I think probably 1 through 6 are probably good bets to be future NFL running backs. After that, you're probably taking flyers. I actually really like Kavorian Barnes over at UTSA. I think if he were to transfer up to kind of a bigger program, his stock may would bump up a little bit. But I think we're looking at guys like C.J. Baxter, Devin Neal, Jaden Blue, Javonte Barnes, Jeremiah Love, and C.J. Donaldson as really being the cream of the crop whenever it comes to running backs with the Big 12 G5 independent range.
I mean, one guy to just like, since there are 2 Texas backs in the top 3, like Jonathan Brooks, just throwing the name out there, because if he takes that job and ends up getting the bulk of the work at Texas, he's not on this list, and I'm not sitting here. I'm not pounding the drum for Jonathan Brooks. I just want to be clear. I'm just saying I could see a world where he works his way into that.
Well, we have him down there at number 13.
Oh, there he is, 13. Yeah.
So I've got him listed on here. It's kind of like a just in case thing. I just don't know how much work he's going to get with those 2 5-stars.
Yeah, we'll see. Caleb Hicks is an interesting guy with long-term NFL potential for Devy drafts in the, like, I'd say after the 5th, definitely after the 5th round range. But he's an interesting freshman at Oklahoma also. But you've got two really young guys in that backfield ahead of him right now, at least.
Yep. So, yeah, with Barnes and with Sawchuk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at 7, Rasheen Ali. I mean, that's someone at Marshall that has, very good potential. He's a solid runner. He missed some games last year, but the year before that, he rushed over 1,000 yards, and he averages over 5 yards per carry the past 2 years, so definitely an eye to be a late day 3 pick. But I mean, really, in today's day and age of running backs, those are the guys that are getting picked and getting some, good capital or some good playing time, because you're seeing the league circle to a running back by committee kind of approach. So Rasheen Ali could be a benefactor of that, being a 5th, 6th round pick, and yet still getting some potential playing time here and there with his running abilities. So that's someone that definitely keeping an eye on, and I think will be available later in your drafts, and he might be, one of those heavy sleepers.
I'm going to jump in on Ali too here with SC. I'm a big Ali fan, man. I obviously missed last year, some personal stuff, some issues going on. He came back late in the season and actually looked pretty good for not practicing and playing all year. He was an absolute beast as a freshman. I mean, absolute beast for Marshall. And he's not a little guy. He's 6 foot 215. So he's a guy like in Devy's. If I'm like a late Devy pick, I'm taking him late. But in C2C and CFF, I mean, he's a first round pick.
Yeah, CFF,
he's a first round pick.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a first round pick. In C2C, some people want to jump on the higher rated freshman coming out, so you can get him a little bit later in a C2C. But man, he's a guy I like. I just think he's gonna get a shot. He's not small. Sometimes you think about these backs that put up good numbers at like a Marshall, and you're like, oh, is he 5'8", 180? And he's not. He's a bigger back. I like him a lot. You talked about Barnes from UTSA. I like him a ton. And Frank Gore Jr., man. Frank Gore Jr. had one of the best bowl games of all time last year. I mean, just absolute beast mode. He was like 370 some yards, 4 touchdowns, just monster game. He played a little bit of quarterback, a little bit of everything for Southern Miss. He just looked real good at the end of his freshman year and real good at the end of last year. Like the last 4 or 5 games, just absolutely cranked it on. I've got him in a couple C2C leagues. Obviously in Devy, you can get him pretty late. But, man, he's a great PFF C2C pickup because he's a guy, just because of the name, too. The Frank Gore Jr. name, he's going to get a shot in the NFL.
Agreed.
A team's going to pick him up, and they're going to give him a shot. So if you can get him late, I love it because he's a guy that, if he goes undrafted free agent or goes in the 6th, 7th round, he's going to get a shot to play. And it's just going to be free money for you there.
And his hardest game this year might be against Tulane. So there is a lot of comment. That's like week 3, I think. So, there's a chance that he just carries you to that ship if he just continues to progress, because year after year, he is getting better as a more consistent base runner. Like it's finally starting to come together. So this might be that boom for him.
Well, if they can make sure that their quarterback stays healthy this year, that was a problem last year. He was forced to play a lot of quarterback because Southern Miss's quarterback was hurt. So if he could stay at the running back spot and just strictly get running back production, he's going to score for you in C2C and CFF leagues.
The one guy I will say I'm slightly dropping on is CJ Donaldson. He in C2C and PFF last year, they had him ranked as a tight end, and he gave you some big games as a running back, but in the tight end slot that helps you out. I'm just not sure they're going to totally use him as a pure star running back this year. And so that's got me a little bit nervous on him as far as how high I would be taking him. I don't think I'd be taking him in Devy at all right now, honestly. I'd take him later in C2C. I think he's going way too early for me. He had a couple bust out games that people were like, ooh, look at this. And like I said, that fan tracks weird where he kind of was tight end / RB and you could play him in a tight end role was great last year. But if you took the straight production, I think he was not even in the top 50 in scoring for most of the year. So he's a guy that, I like him. I've got him on a couple teams, but I got him late last year, and I'm probably not taking him if I have to take him as early as you're going to have to this year, most likely.
Last year he was almost free. You were picking him up on waivers last year. I
think I got him the first or second week of waiver wire. Right?
Yeah. Because he was a tight end that they moved to running back. So he's a bigger guy. He obviously has good enough hands to to be a tight end. So he's gonna give you production out of the backfield there. I just think this year, you got Neil Brown there at West Virginia, who is extremely on the hot seat. He has to win. So I think he's gonna really rely on his running back stud right there in order to pick up wins. So I think Donaldson's is going to be relied on a lot this year.
And everybody's out on Kamara Wheaton, right?
Oh yeah. Kamara Wheaton, LJ Johnson. I mean,
your backfield is.
Yeah. Jalen Knighton. It's a mess there right now.
It's way too messy.
Let me throw out a quick question to the rest of you guys and see what you think. What are you doing with Oklahoma running backs? I can't figure out where I want to go. Do I want to be in? Do I want to be out completely? Do I want to take a flyer on one guy later to see if he hits? I'm having a hard time. I'll see what you guys think.
I think you pair them together to see which one ends up with the job. I'm not sure either one of them runs away with it, so I think it may just be running back by committee. Barnes was more productive last year, but then Sawchuk had a really good bowl game. So who knows?
Yeah,
Oklahoma State's still Big 12, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Ollie Gordon.
Yeah.
Oh, see, I might rather have him than any of the Oklahoma
Good
backs.
call, SB.
Now he transferred in from somewhere, didn't he? Where did he transfer in from? Was it Washington State?
He was there. 1 second.
I want to say he transferred in from Washington State because their running back last year, the Oklahoma State running back from last year, transferred to Baylor, right?
Yeah, and people are talking. Well, there's Trey Sanders to TCU.
Yeah, Trey Sanders transferred from Alabama to TCU. Yeah,
Alabama, not Oklahoma. Sorry about that. You're correct. Yes.
The Oklahoma, to answer your question, JT, the Oklahoma running backs, they're going too high for me to really want to be in. Like the one I want to grab, if I'm going to grab one, is Hicks, and I want to grab him in the late, like in the 30s of a C2C draft, if I can, just because like the C2C draft I'm in right now, like Barnes went 1208. Sawchuk went 1103. Like I just don't like. I took LaQuint Allen in between both of them, for example, and like I'll take the sophomore leader of the Syracuse.
Yeah, with nobody. I agree 100%. I take LaQuint Allen over him all day,
like all day, and he's going in between them like that. Like I got Caleb Johnson around after that also at Iowa. Like for me, that backfield. I think your question is the right one. To me, they're just going too high, and I don't know. Maybe they have some NFL value, but we haven't seen a huge number of Oklahoma backs going and smashing in the NFL. And I'm not sold enough on either of them to pay the price personally.
Well, what's really going to tell the tale is next season, whenever they move into the SEC. Are they capable of playing in an SEC schedule?
Amen. True story.
All right. Well, I think that kind of exhausts.
One quick plug: I'm watching Shoddy Clayton Johnson. Like,
you're what now?
Shoddy Clayton Johnson at Tulane.
Yeah.
Like, same thing as the Pratt conversation. Like, he's walking into the Tyjae Spears role. He was very efficient when he filled in last year. I'm watching that one.
I'm not sure if he'll get the exact same volume as what Tyjae Sharp did, or Tyjae Spears did. Tyjae Sharp was the wide receiver, wasn't it? Tyjae Spears, just because he's a little bit smaller. But I do think he's going to get a lot of that run there.
That someone just keep laid eye on just because he had an Achilles injury, Jadarian Price at Notre Dame too. You know, he had an Achilles injury last year, missed his whole freshman year, but we've seen Mohamed Ibrahim come back from that Achilles tear and have a great season. He's had to battle to get to that one spot, but someone to keep an eye on nonetheless.
Right,
is another one, yeah.
I just looked it up though. Shoddy 6'1", 205. Just saying, like he's got a little size. Also, Notre Dame Audric Estime isn't on here. He gets a lot of
Audric Estime, yeah.
Yeah, Audric Estime gets a lot of hype.
Yeah, I don't know why I've totally whiffed on putting him on there. I should have. He would have been up there in that CJ Donaldson range.
Yeah, he's the guy I've seen a lot of people on. Again, I'm not 100% sure on him. Some of these bigger opponents, like, man, these guys feel like it's like you're taking them because they're on Notre Dame or you're taking them because they're on Oklahoma. But it's like I feel like you can get better value somewhere else. It's like you feel like you got to take them because they're at that big school. But man, some of these guys, I'd rather wait on some of these guys at these smaller schools and see if they hit. Just because I know I'm going to get production, I know they're going to play, as opposed to a guy that's hey, he could hit, but he could be the third stringer. You never know.
Well, here's the thing, though. If you guys were talking about Arch Manning and Jackson Arnold earlier, that they're not going to get on the field, so their value is maybe higher because of that, and you'd be able to sell them. Well, why not the same thing with one of these running backs? Also, like if you're, if you're talking Sawchuck, he may have more value, but as soon as he gets on the field, his value may depreciate.
Yeah, I think it counts more for quarterbacks overall on that hold, but I do think running back, wide receiver, I think it makes more of a difference if they're on a powerhouse team with studs in front of them. Like if you're a guy from Ohio State and you come in as a 5-star, but hey, you got studs in front of you, people expect you to be that next stud, so you're going to hold value a little bit better than say
Alabama and Georgia.
Yeah, exactly. If you're the guy, you go in there, but say you go into like a Michigan State as a 5-star and you don't bust out as a freshman,
right?
People are going to be like, "Whoa, why are you not killing it right away?" So I think it definitely matters on the situation.
Right.
As long as there's a guy that's already a stud in front of you, I think it brings your value up. But when there's not somebody and you don't win that job, that's when I think people get nervous.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and positional wise is different, school wise is different. So yeah, I completely understand.
Fun late running back flyer in this conference in that same mold, freshman DJ Oliver at West Virginia. Dude is 240 pounds and is a freak athlete. He's a fun late round stash.
See, when you talk about him, that's why I'm nervous about Donaldson.
Yeah.
I could see, because Donaldson's already that big guy. Well, now you take a guy who actually is a running back and then comes in with the same type of style, but actually played all running back. That's why I'd much rather take a flyer on him late than I would take Donaldson where he's going.
Yeah, and I know we haven't gotten to the Big Ten yet, but a guy that a guy I'm really, really, really high on, especially in that 4 to 5 round range at running back is Caden Fegan at Illinois.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I like McCray a ton, but I'm worried about him now. Once they signed Fegan, I was like, ooh. I was like, I like McCray a ton, but I'm like, man, Fegan is a stud. So I'm a little nervous about my McCray.
Braylon Allen 2.0.
I'm nervous. I have to be honest. But I mean, I think they're both going to play. I think Illinois is going to pound the rock. But yeah, we'll talk about that next week.
Yeah,
on the Big Ten show.
We'll get there on our next show. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on to our next position group. We got wide receivers coming up next. Let's go and pop this list up here. If there's anybody else that's not on the list, go and throw them out there. I know Keon Brown has opted to go JUCO. So, I mean, he's obviously, he may still be Devy relevant eventually. We'll have to see where he ends up, and if he's even still a thing here 2 years from now when he gets out of JUCO. But just keep in mind he's not at Oklahoma anymore, or he did not end up getting into Oklahoma. We'll just say that. Wide receiver wise, I'm really high on the 2 Texas guys, but a guy that I'm actually becoming more and more just enthralled with is Malachi Corley at Western Kentucky. That guy's a stud. He's very much in the Deebo Samuel mold. Same size, same kind of skill set. And volume wise, he he may be the most productive wide receiver in college football.
He feels like the C2C guy to own. If you're in C2C, it's like Malachi Corley's the guy because he's going to give you elite production, and then he's definitely a guy that's going to have a shot to be drafted pretty high just because he's not that makeup of a lot of these guys that you see these smaller schools where they're tiny guys, but they're real fast. So they're just quicker than everybody else. So you can get them little drop-offs and they make huge plays. He's a legit athlete. He's a legit player. Man, he's a guy I was targeting all over the place, and I couldn't get him anywhere this year. Everybody was on.
I've actually seen NFL draft mocks for 2024 that have him going late first round.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think he's a guy that easily could be that first, second round guy. He's a guy I feel like if he drops to the third in the NFL draft, he's going to be the guy everyone's like, oh my God, they just got a steal. Yep. Like, I can't believe he went round 3. That's crazy. So he's a guy in a C2C for sure. Devy, I love him too, but in C2C, he might be one of my absolute top targets.
Yeah, that's spot on.
Me and Tommy are in the startup C2C draft, and he went in the second round, pick 2-9. So I mean, definitely the sky's the limit. And you think about that as he has a chance to sign because that competition isn't necessarily going to be as great, right? So this is an opportunity for him to go out there and showcase those skills.
Well, there's been a lot more talk about like the schools like Western Kentucky than there used to be. They used to kind of just get ignored, and they don't get ignored anymore by the national media and stuff. I mean, people talk about those teams. They talk about those guys. And so it's not like, oh, where did this guy come from? I mean, he's getting hyped coming into the year. I mean, that's fantastic for him. And again, he's got a great quarterback to get him the ball. So he's a guy I'm all over. On the opposite side of that, I'm a little worried about Matthew Golden from Houston. I like Golden. I'm worried about his QB play. Golden feels like a guy who's a downfield player. He feels like he has a QB that's not a downfield thrower. I love Clayton Tune. I've talked about it a million times. I loved him with Clayton Tune, but I'm not 100% sold. And I'm blanking on his name. Who their starter is going? Donovan Smith. I'm not totally sold on Donovan Smith being a guy that can make Matthew Golden better. I don't dislike Donovan Smith. I just think he's a very short yard passer, quick burst. I'm not sure that's going to make, Matthew Golden's tape look a ton better, but I don't know what you guys think on that.
I would agree with you. I think Matthew Golden is too high. I think you're probably right about the offensive fit. They also have they've got some talent in that Houston receiver room too. He's not going to be alone.
Sam Brown's really good too.
Yeah, Sam Brown is really good. But yeah, I think where he's to me, just like where he's going or where he's being talked about, which is in the 2025 class, he's being talked about in that range of guys where you have Berrien Brown and Antonio Williams and Tet McMillan and Luther, and I see Golden's name getting tossed into that, and that's way too much for me.
Yeah, it just seems too high for that. He's not a steal. Like, usually you want that Houston guy that's a steal. Well, if he's getting taken that high, I'm taking the guy from Clemson. 100%. I'm taking the guy from the big name school if they're going for the same price usually.
I think
that's the only thing I say on it. I say Corley is 4. Corley, I mean, God, I almost like him more. I know Xavier Worthy, people love him and sizes and all the difference, but man, I almost like Corley more personally. For me at the top of the list, he might be my number one guy, even though I love Jonte Cook. If you're willing to wait on a freshman,
Worthy has just that he has tremendous ball skills and so much speed. Last year, he had the case of the drops last year. That was because he played a lot of the year with a broken hand.
He did.
So coming back healthy this year, I think you're going to see more of what he was as a freshman.
Yeah, Worthy's separation skills are elite to me, and I think he fits the mold of what the NFL seems to be looking for in receivers right now. Looks a lot like that Devontae Smith, Jordan Addison kind of build and style of receiver. I think he has a big bounce back year this year and balls out. The one thing that Texas receiver room, so like this list has 5-6 Texas receivers on it. And this list does not even have Jordan Whittington on it, who was like their wide receiver 2-3 last year. And I don't know, like AD Mitchell's interesting to me too there. Like AD Mitchell adds, when you look at the guys that are in the Texas receiver room, AD Mitchell looks like the one of these guys is not like the other sort of situation. And he's got the recruiting pedigree and the talent from Georgia, showed out in the championship game, had a phenomenal spring game, like was all over the field. We can talk about Greathouse, who also had a phenomenal spring game too. But like AD Mitchell's interesting because I could see him jumping up and getting day 2 draft capital as well.
I think you're talking about AD Mitchell there. I think Isaiah Nayor is another guy.
Yeah.
Transferred in last year, got hurt, missed the entire season. He was a big time transfer. He had originally, he was at Wyoming. He had originally committed to Tennessee and then switched his commit to Texas. And then, basically as soon as he stepped on campus, got hurt. I think he has tremendous potential also. I really want to see what he looks like coming off that injury. Another guy was on a terrible, terrible offense last year. Keegan Johnson. He was at Iowa, transfers to Kansas State now, and is really looking like he's potentially going to be their wide receiver 1. I think he has big time potential there. Joshua Cephas and you got DeCorian Clark, both at UTSA. I
think with Franklin gone,
with Franklin transferring out to Ole Miss, I think those guys have tremendous opportunity. Are they NFL type guys? I'm not sure. I'm not sure Zachary Franklin even was, to be honest with you. But those guys are definitely CFF, C2C relevant. Whenever it comes to the wide receiver position. Cordell Russell, big target for TCU, broke his collarbone, but he should be coming back. JoJo Earl transferring from Alabama to TCU. He's probably going to be TCU's wide receiver 1 this year. All it takes is one big year in a big time program, and he could be looked at being drafted really, really highly.
Totally. Jordan Hudson, SMU.
Transfer from TCU. He was a 5-star wide receiver, big time talent. He'll probably start off this season at SMU as their wide receiver 2 behind Jordan Curley, just because Curley has been there for so long. But I think Jordan Hudson has the skills and potential to take over that wide receiver 1 position there at SMU. This whole the wide receiver group we have here is actually very, very talented. And there's even a couple of guys we don't even have listed. Caleb Hood at Georgia Southern.
Derwin Burgess.
Yep. Derwin Burgess is another one. There's several of the Sam Weigels at Ohio.
Jaquan Jackson at Tulane.
Yeah. All those guys, very CFF, C2C relevant. Could end up being big time surprises and potential NFL draft picks as well.
Jerwan Newton to Toledo.
Yep, Toledo. Yep, that's another guy. There's a lot of wide receiver talent in the G5 realm that we really need to kind of be paying attention to. Especially whenever it comes to rookie drafts next year. Now you may not be looking at them at rostering them in a Devy space right now, but C2C, CFF, keep an eye on them for your rookie drafts for next year also.
One last dude to throw in, Monterey Baldwin from
Baylor. Yep, there you go. There's another one.
He's literally the fastest clocked guy in college football last year.
Yep.
He's just one to like when you're the fastest clock guy in college football. Watch.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. See, these are the guys I like to. If I'm in a CFF or a C2C league with like limited waiver wire pickups, these are the guys I want to keep an eye on because you want to get those guys or Matt guys or that bust out that like nobody's really paying a lot of attention to. And then you can grab those guys mid-season. They can leave you a championship, but they also can be that guy that next year was going to go a lot higher, and you stole them off of waiver wires. I look at guys like Rondo Gatson sitting on waiver wires last year, going at like tight end 2 in a lot of leagues on CFF stuff. I mean, a lot of these guys you can grab late. So I was something like, don't fall asleep on these guys, especially these G5 guys. Don't fall asleep on these guys mid-season because you could get some studs. Dorian Clark was sitting out there in a lot of leagues last year for UTSA, and if you were smart enough to jump in on him, he was their third wide receiver. But man, they put up a ton of stats. Their third wide receiver was scoring points every week. So those are definitely guys you want to keep an eye out on, especially when you get a little less coverage and you don't know who's going to be the stud early on in the year. Those are the guys about, week 3, 4, 5, 6, you can maybe jump in and pick up.
Well, you have your FAU stuff on. We didn't even mention Wester, the wide receiver Wester out of FAU.
Yeah, he's the guy I'm getting at the very end of drafts. I just think their passing game is going to be totally different this year with Herman, and he's a guy I'm loving to draft late and see if he can make an impact there. I just think it's worth a shot for him. I love it.
And I was a fan of, when we were talking about earlier, Sam Hartman out of Wake Forest. If he goes in there and showcases Greathouse as a good talent, that may be someone that's to open their eyes that, oh, snap, this is a wide receiver we need to keep an eye on, because I really enjoyed the chemistry he had with A.T. Perry, and there is not a true one in Notre Dame right now in my eyes, so it's possible, this guy Greathouse could be his target. Well,
you mentioned Wake Forest there. Some little bit of unfortunate news from earlier today, yesterday. Donovan Green looks like he's going to be out for the season there. That's a big hit for that offense. He was really looking to kind of make a big jump. I was really high on him in Devy actually. Not even just CFF or C2C, but Devy. I was really taking him kind of later on, and so that's kind of some unfortunate wide receiver news there. All right, well, let's move on to our tight ends here. I know that there's not going to be a whole lot. There's not going to be a whole lot to talk about with tight ends. There never really is, but we'll go ahead and pop a few up here on the screen. Jatavian Sanders is probably really the only one you're looking at in a Devy draft right now. All the rest are probably kind of C2C, CFF guys that you're probably Brady Hunt's a big CFF guy. RJ Maryland probably is too. Oscar Cardenas at a
Cardenas with Zakari leaving, that passing game is open. Cardenas is a big boy too.
Yeah.
He's 270 pounds.
Oh yeah, he's a big dude,
and he can move. He's interesting.
Eli Raridan at Notre Dame has potential. Problem is, he's had a couple of knee injuries that may end up hampering him.
What do y'all think about Jatavian? Is he the locked in tight end 2 for Devy this year?
No. I don't think he's locked in as tight end 2. I think who am I thinking of? LSU tight end Mason
Taylor.
Mason Taylor, yep. Mason Taylor. I think he can make a big jump up to Devy tight end 2. I think athletically he's better than what Jatavian Sanders is. I think he's faster. I think he's more physical. I just think Jatavian Sanders kind of picks apart the Big 12 because he's kind of a mismatch there for Big 12 safeties and linebackers. But I think Mason Taylor's may end up being a better tight end.
Interesting.
Who'll have a little bit more competition too, I feel like, than what Taylor would. I like Sanders. But when you're talking about the tight ends in the 2024 class, it's Bowers, and then it's okay. Choose who you want in my eyes. So I do think he could have a great season. For the pros and cons, glass half full, glass half empty. He got some more help, right, in the room at the wide receiver room, but then he got some more help, right? So it's still take it how you want it. He could either benefit heavily from this, or he could really hurt from this. And the way that goes, the way that glass will fill, if you will depend on where he's at, not only in your Devy draft or not only in your rookie drafts next year, will also the NFL draft. He has the talent there to be nice. Like you just mentioned, Tommy, he picks apart the team just because he's big and he knows what to do with the ball when it's up in the air and get in his hands and knows how to make the play. But yeah, I mean, I like him, but it's I'm not necessarily taking him unless it's like a tight end premium, then maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sold on him being overly athletic either. I just think he's kind of a big guy who kind of manhandles people. I don't think he's overly fast. I don't think I don't think he's gonna be hard to take down in the open field. Whereas guys like Brock Bowers is very elusive. I think Mason Taylor is pretty elusive, more athletic, faster. There's guys who are better overall tight ends than what Jatavian Sanders is. Now in the 24 class, he may be tight end too. Overall Devy tight end though. I think he's probably I'm actually kind of thinking of moving him down to like 3 or 4, honestly.
Well, I might be taking Oscar Delp over him though.
Yeah. Oscar Delp's another one you could possibly look at. Deuce Robinson, way more athletic. Deuce Robinson's a freak.
Well, where are y'all at on Fairchild? Is he someone that's even on your radar in a C2C, or is he just you're not even looking at him?
I may look at him, kind of tight end 2 or 3 on my C2C team, CFF team possibly. Not anybody that I'd be looking to start.
Yeah, I like him as a backup. I like RJ Maryland if you can get RJ Maryland, like I said. Yeah. I feel like on these C2C teams, it's Devy wise, man. I'm just not taking a tight end unless it's a guy that I feel like is just a game changer. Because like if I look at my C2C teams, I think in my first round on C2C, the supplemental draft going in the NFL side, I think 4 out of the top 6 guys were tight ends that were picked. So that tells you like those guys weren't even on a roster, a C2C roster, and they all ended up getting like first, second, or third round draft capital, and they were the guys all taken in the C2C supplemental side. So you can get tight ends there. So that's where I'd rather get my tight end if I'm going to get a tight end. Now, a Brock Bowers, I'm taking Brock Bowers just because I think Brock Bowers is awesome. I think he's going to end up on a team that's going to use him correctly, and he's going to be a receiving stud in the NFL, especially when he gets into a weight room. But outside of that, I'm taking guys I think can give me some production in college and hoping it translates. In Devy, unless I'm taking like a Mason Taylor like late, that's probably the only other tight end I'm really looking at, or like Jatavian Sanders. If I just don't love anybody else and he's still there, like one of my last picks, then maybe I'm taking him in a 5 or 6 round Devy. But I'm not jumping on many tight ends in Devy just because I feel.
Oh, and honestly, I almost think that Bowers could even be too expensive.
Yeah,
sure. To take a tight end. I think it's like JT was saying. I'd much rather wait till kind of the end and take a Mason Taylor than have to be forced to take Brock Bowers in the first round.
Yeah, I don't think I'm taking let's say a tight end, not in Devy. C2C definitely if they're putting up. I mean Devy. I'm not taking Bowers at 105, which I think he is in your rookie drafts next year. So. I just wait, your tight end, unless you have the unicorns, your Travis Kelce's, your Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, you're streaming them, right? So I mean, the same way in C2C, unless you get one of those top unicorn guys that acts as the receiver for the team, you're probably just streaming them.
Yeah, I mean, Brock Bowers probably steps in as a top 3 or 4 Devy tight end as soon as he hits the field. But I kind of like to fade tight end anyways.
Yeah, I'm in a 2 tight end. I'm in a 2 tight end C2C startup right now. I did not take one until the 29th round, even with starting 2.
Yeah.
And I've ended up like on this list, like I got Oscar Cardenas in the 46th round.
Who'd you end up taking in the 29th round?
I regret my pick in the 29th round. I should state. I regret it heavily. I took Trent Penix. The reason I took Trent Penix is because here's the thing with Trent Penix. Like, he's interesting because he's one of those running back hybrid types. And with Robert and I going to NC State, and the way he uses tight ends, my thought was, let me get one of these hybrid guys who's a freak he's a freak athlete. So I was thinking, let me take some upside. Looking back at it, I wouldn't take that pick again. But still, in the 29th round, like, what's the right? Like, it's not. I'm not investing. I didn't invest crazy capital in that pick, so I'm fine with that one. I got Cardenas. One guy not on that list that's interesting. I think it's Jay or JJ McAfee for Georgia Southern. Like, he's another one of these hybrid dudes who is in just one of these incredibly high-flying passing offenses that if you're in a C2C league, like, grab these hybrid type dudes because they are the ones who end up, like, that's why I grabbed Penix, because he gets carries and like does different stuff in the offense. Like, to all y'all's points, like, it's unfortunately one of those positions where to invest super highly isn't necessarily the greatest thing. And you can, where did everybody get? Everyone who had C2Cs last year got Gadsden this year in supplementals.
Well, exactly, because I mean, you're looking at like a Brenton Strange, like, put up almost 0 stats at Penn State, but people are like, oh, I like his athletic profile. I like what he can do. He gets high draft capital in the NFL. Same thing, Luke Musgrave, two good weeks, hurt, still gets high draft capital, is good. So it's one of those things I just wouldn't spin it, because that's where I'm always looking. If you have waiver wire, like a lot of my C2C are like 2 to 5 waiver wire pickups. That's what I'm looking at. Who's the tight end that I see on a small school that's throwing the ball that ends up breaking out? If I don't have a stud tight end, that's the first pickup I'm making. I'm looking for a tight end that's going to get me some points and use my waiver wire that way. Because I don't think college production necessarily carries over to what the NFL likes for players. And so that's why I feel like the Devy, it's really hard taking tight ends. Like, and the only reason I take Brock Bowers is I think he's a Travis Kelce. He's a number 1 wide receiver on your team. Yeah. Not your number 1 tight end. He's your number 1 wide receiver. And that's the only reason I'm grabbing a guy like him for pure advantage at C2C or PFF. But it's just, you've seen it. All these guys who didn't have great college production were all the top picks. Guys that had way better production, nowhere to be found, because the NFL I think looks at defensive end and tight end the same way. They just want athletes. They want certain size, and they want an athlete, and they figure they can make them into what they need them to. So that's why I just don't jump at it and spend much on it unless it's an absolute stud.
Well, another Big Ten guy that we'll talk about here in a couple weeks on our next show, but tight end, has kind of transferred all over the place now. At Nebraska, you got Eric Gilbert, absolutely freakish, and I don't know if he's ever going to be able to put it together. But if he were to, let's say he could, you may be looking at a potential first round talent.
I would almost take Eric Gilbert over almost anyone else if I'm gonna take a tight end in a Devy.
Right.
If I'm just going straight Devy, I'd almost rather have Eric Gilbert, because it's a full, I'm either hitting a grand slam with him or I'm busting. But like I'd rather take that pure talent tight end guy over anything else, because he's that type of guy that the NFL is gonna give a shot to. Somebody is gonna give him a shot.
He's gonna kill it at the combine.
He's going to crush. And somebody's going to be like, we got to take this guy because we think we can make him a superstar. So I'd rather, if I'm jumping in a draft like that, a Devy, and I'm taking a time, I'd rather take a pure talent like that, like just an athletic freak over anything else, because I feel like that's what the NFL wants. And that's, I'm not worried about his college production. I'm not worried about what he does at Nebraska. I still think he's going to be in the NFL. Now, the question is, how high does he get picked? If he has a even decent year at Nebraska and then crushes the combine, I could see him being a second or third round pick.
Well, here's the thing: the NFL likes to even take college basketball power forwards.
Yes,
because they're all about athletic profile. They're all about defensive end and tight end is athletic profile first. Production is way down. Nolan Smith, another perfect example. One of the least productive guys at Georgia, still a first-round pick. Why? Athletic profile. DN and tight end is all about athletic freaks. They don't care what your production was.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. basketball profile freshman tight end at Iowa State, Benjamin Brahmer. Watch out for that dude. He's 6'7". He has been playing basketball. Like, you look at his Twitter, he's got his basketball highlights posted on Twitter of him all the way through going in as like, those are the type, like, you need a type of guy that's going to be, if you're going to spend on a tight end, spend on that kind of invest on that kind of athlete. But yeah, to your point, let's think Dalton Kincaid. At this time last year, if we did a Pac-12 list of tight ends, we would not have talked about Dalton Kincaid.
Well, he was behind Keithy. He was behind Keithy at the a year ago. Keithy got hurt, and then it became the Dalton Kincaid show.
Exactly. That's like kind of like illustrate the point. Like, he wouldn't have even made our list.
Yep. Tight end is such a crapshoot.
JT, we can't hear you, bro.
JT's talking.
Sorry. I was like, that's my point. I was like, if I'm picking up a tight end, I'm more worried about I'm watching waiver wire and getting a guy early or some injury or something happens. That's where I'd rather pick up a tight end on that side, because now you know who's playing, who's actually putting up points. That's much rather what I'd rather wait and do that and save that pick and use it on somebody else, and then use my waiver wire on a tight end that's actually producing.
Yeah. Well, my God, we talked about tight end way too much right there. Way too much went into talking about tight end, but at least we had something to say about him, I guess. All right, guys.
Good times.
I mean, all of these leagues, if you're in a C2C league, at least the ones I'm in, they're almost all two tight end now. Because if you don't go two tight end, you wouldn't talk about them at all.
No, you wouldn't even care about a tight end. Because, I mean, college production, you're able to pick that up, anywhere. I mean, there's a guy at Wyoming. What's his name? Welch, the Wyoming tight end.
Oh yeah,
we didn't even talk about him tonight.
Harold Fannin from Bowling Green.
Yeah, Koziol is that who you're talking about?
Koziol. No, Koziol's the other dude at Ball State. I was talking about Harold Fannin.
Yeah.
To your Welch point, like.
Yep. Yeah, Fannin and Welch and Koziol, we didn't even mention any of those three. And Ball State has two highly productive tight ends with Hunt and Koziol, and then you got Welch over at Wyoming, highly productive tight end that nobody talks about. Holken at Colorado State's another guy. Nobody talks about them. You can get them like for free basically as your last pick in C2C leagues. It's crazy.
I just added Welch to my queue.
Yeah, there you go.
We're in 70 round draft that's in round 58, and I'm going to grab him somewhere here in the next.
They say if you take anything away from this talk, is just wait on tight end.
Yeah,
just wait till the end, or take them off waiver wires.
Yeah, completely fade them unless they're Brock Bowers. Yeah. That's it. Oh man. Well, all right, guys. Well, somehow we were able to go an hour and close to 15 minutes tonight talking about basically complete garbage. But hey, somebody's got to, I guess, right?
All my favorite C2C guys. That's the problem.
These are really fun C2C guys. There are some guys.
They are.
There are some P5 guys like we didn't hit like Cyrus. We didn't hit Cyrus Allen. We didn't hit we could hit some C2C guys that are real fun.
Jalen Noel, wide receiver at Iowa State. We didn't even talk about him. You know, he's going to be a target hog. You know, volume pig. There you go. You're talking about volume pig earlier. He's going to be a volume pig this year.
He's big on that. Yeah.
I take it back. We didn't talk about complete garbage. These guys have value. Okay, you know, there's just not a whole lot of it with what we talk about. You know, in terms of Devy, it's more C2C and CFF what we talked about tonight. But hey, that's perfectly fine. I love talking CFF. I love talking C2C. We can talk about that anytime you want to.
With the conference realignment, Big 12 is going to be interesting moving forward. Like even projecting out a year from now, because a year from now, like Oklahoma, Texas going to be gone. Colorado's joining now. Like some new teams are going to join in there.
Colorado, Utah, Arizona State.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting to see how that the Big 12 is almost going to move to. It's almost like I feel like the conferences are almost going to move into almost 3 tiers of conferences. Like they're instead of just like P5, G5, you're going to have like P3 almost. And then the Big 12, like I like how you group Big 12 with independents with this, because I think it actually was a really smart way to forecast like where college football is going, honestly.
Well, you know, with the Big 12 bringing in Houston and BYU and UCF and Cincinnati, you know, those were group of 5 teams.
Yep.
So them moving into the Big 12, they still have group of 5 talent.
Yep.
So where do they slot in?
Yep. But that's why I say I think it's gonna, and it kind of goes to the earlier point. I think SC or JT you were making about like that some of these programs are getting more a little bit more publicity. And so I think that's where you're going to see almost a 3-tier system where you're going to get a mid-tier, like the Big 12 is going to fit into almost a mid-tier where you're going to have this combination of these sort of former G5 talent teams with these slightly lesser, and then the teams that
are like where waves meet in the ocean.
Exactly. And the teams where you see so many guys on this list in the top tier are going to move out into the bigger conference, move into the SEC, and then you're going to see the Big 12 be almost like this mid-tier conference, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all goes.
I think in the next 5 years, you're really going to see them move to kind of a more, not really a super conference, but like a centralized league, to where you're going to have all these main programs, and then everybody else kind of falls by the wayside.
Just think about this real quick. Like, think about Colorado. If Oklahoma and Texas were gone already, and Colorado was in the Big 12 this year with these teams, how much different would the outlook at Colorado be? Where people are looking at Colorado being like a 3-win team, and then they're like, oh, no, you take all that talent, you put them in going against all these other schools, you might be talking about Colorado winning the division, winning 10 games.
Potentially, yeah, because the Big 12 doesn't play defense. So,
well,
neither is perfect for them. That's what I'm saying.
But the Pac-12 doesn't either, but you have more elite talent in the Pac-12. You know,
you don't have to play Oregon, USC,
right. Washington's good defensively.
Washington's massive. Like
Utah's really good defensively.
Yeah.
Utah's great defensively.
So I mean, but in the Big 12, nobody is good defensively.
Yeah,
I was saying, you put Colorado with their talent on offense. Yeah, I mean, you put Colorado on offense, their offense. I mean, you might talk about them winning the Big 12 this, if they were in this year without those other teams.
That's really true. And so what you're saying there is like next year, Colorado is a favorite in the Big 12. Immediately,
if those guys come back, if Sanders stays and all those guys stay, I think they immediately become the favorite to win the Big 12 next year. Even if they win 3 games this year, I think they could be the favorite.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I agree.
Yep. Oh, well, all right, guys. Well, how about we go ahead and call it a night here? I think we've kind of rambled on quite a bit. A lot of good information. For those who have listened to us and I've really enjoyed kind of talking it out with you. But let's go ahead and call it a night. 2 weeks from now, we'll be doing our Big 10 show. We're going to be bringing on one of our newest contributors to DynastyProsFootball.com, Andy Pham. He's a big time Devy guy. He's also a Big 10 guy. He's a Michigan guy. So we are going to really enjoy having him on. Guys, go ahead and tell us where we can find your stuff. JT, go and start us off there.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter or X now, as we're trying to figure out what we call this. X, I'm at JT Orange. You can find me on there. Everything Dynasty Pros. On there, the Stew with JT Brew is my individual podcast that I'm getting back into doing. I was on vacation last week, and then I'm always here with you guys doing the Devy. And then you can find me over at P2W doing John McGlynn's show, the Commissioner Evaluation Podcast. So I jump in there and co-host with him. But yeah, always hit me up about any league. I play a little bit of everything.
Nice. You can me RPO football. You can see some articles on there. Jump on with these guys on the Devy Dynasty show, talking some good college football, and also with Aaron St. Dennis, the Mad Science Lab, hopping on a series with him during the season. Talk about your start sits and stuff like that. So that will be coming to y'all when the season starts. And at the PPR show on X, I guess you can say.
Like we're all Des Bryant here,
right?
Yeah, you can find me my Twitter _ at Noah _ FF _ and I'm also now doing some work with at Dynasty _Degens. Dynasty Degens is an awesome new fantasy group, and we are going to be starting a Devy podcast as well, a regular Devy podcast as well, that I will be co-hosting with Todd Vincent. Super excited about that. Probably in the next month or so here too. And love continuing to jump on with y'all and do some work with the Dynasty Pros team. Yeah, so you can find us over there. Check us out though.
Yep, will do, guys. All right. Well, that I think that's going to wrap it up for tonight. For JT, Noah, and SC, I'm Tommy. Go ahead and do us a favor. Hit the thumbs up. Subscribe, hit the notification bell, and go visit DynastyProsFootball.com. That is going to be it for tonight's show. We will see you next week.